Hi, welcome. If you don't know me, I'm Anna, a clinical psychology doctoral candidate. On this channel, we talk about real-life applications to psychology, so if that's your type of thing, I hope you stay. Hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Today we're talking about pretty privilege. Does beauty really buy happiness? And what does the research have to say on this topic? I promise I did not dress up like this for the topic of the video. It's just I am having a anthesteria party after this, which is to celebrate the coming of spring and the coming of wine season, and so that is also why I have a whole vineyard up there. But let's just get right into it. Let's talk about pretty privilege. So in psychology, it's something called the halo effect, which is when you have a positive cognitive bias towards someone you perceive to be positive in one particular trait, such as attractiveness. So for example, you see that someone is attractive and you think that they're better in other aspects of their life as well. This has been a long documented phenomenon in psychology where people who see attractive others assume that those others are better in terms of personality, intelligence, skill, and so on. A meta-analysis of the halo effect showed that attractive people tend to be viewed as more sociable, warm, mentally healthy, intelligent, socially skilled over unattractive people. And there's also something called the devil effect, which is not the opposite of the halo effect, but its complement, the other side of the coin, which is when you perceive people who are less attractive or unattractive to have worse traits. So pretty privilege is really a colloquial version of the halo effect that gets thrown around in online spheres quite a bit. As young people are becoming more and more aware of different types of privilege, they are recognizing that certain groups have societal advantages over others. We might see it as confirmation of pretty privilege when we look at the myriad of studies that show that those who are perceived to be ugly or outside of the ideal beauty standards, such as, not a certain BMI, which of course is a stupid metric anyway, but those people tend to be bullied and more harshly judged than people who do fall within the certain beauty standard. That's the thing though, there's a difference between being attractive and falling within a beauty standard. You can be attractive and not fall within a beauty standard, and you can fall within a beauty standard and not be considered highly attractive. You'll see why this makes sense in a moment. Does beauty actually buy happiness? Let's look at what the studies have to say. The research is contradicting. Some studies find that yes, attractive people are happier, some find that there is no difference, and some find that attractive people might actually be unhappier than unattractive people. Usually what it means when this happens in the research, when there's such a contradiction between what studies are saying, is that it depends. It's not as simple as attractiveness is related to happiness, but rather we need to find the moderating and mediating factors that determine how the two are related. So here are just a couple of the ones that I stumbled across. The setting where a person lives can be one way that attractiveness and happiness are linked. One study found that attractiveness as measured by waist to hip ratio, which is kind of a funny way of measuring attractiveness, but they say it's more objective. That study found that yes, waist to hip ratio did predict higher well-being and social connectedness, and this was a study on women in specific, but only in urban settings, not in rural settings. So it's interesting, the place that you live, understandably, will also influence the culture, the beliefs that people have about beauty, and how that will in turn affect you. Beliefs about beauty also affects the relationship between beauty and happiness. In a study measuring life satisfaction and waist to hip ratio, again, for women, the women based their happiness on their looks more if they believed that a person's observable features offer a critical window into understanding that individual at their core. So if they emphasized beauty more, if they said that it meant more about them as a person, then they were more likely to be happier if they were attractive. Women with more attractive body types were more likely to be happier only if they thought their beauty said something about who they are as a person. But here's the thing. Gender is another huge factor, and we need to discuss the relationship between attractiveness and gender because the halo effect may only be true for men, and it reflects the way that men and women are socialized. When the person being evaluated is the same gender as the evaluator, attractiveness hurts rather than helps, especially if we're talking about women. One study found that being perceived as physically attractive created positive impressions of achievement-related traits for men, but more negative impressions for the attractive women. In other words, men had more positive impressions of attractive women, but women had more negative impressions of attractive women. Another study found that male and female participants who judged an essay supposedly written by either an attractive or unattractive female author, the men judged the attractive author as significantly more talented, whereas the female judges rated her as less talented, although this difference was not statistically significant, which is important in these studies. Past studies have also found that attractiveness lowers a woman's chance of being hired by another woman and lowers her chance of being forgiven by another woman after apologizing for a mistake. Attractive women are also viewed more negatively when they elect cosmetic surgery. So why is this? Because people self-compare a lot, and being around someone attractive tends to trigger their sense of inadequacy. If we see someone attractive, when we start to compare, our self-esteem tries to put the other person down to make ourselves feel better about our insecurity. So we end up deciding that this person, yeah, they may be attractive, but they hold these negative traits. And this is particularly true for women for a number of reasons. First of all, women are socialized to believe that the most important attribute for a woman is attractiveness. So they may feel more triggered or insecure when faced with an attractive woman than a man might. Studies have shown that women actually report higher body image distress when they're around an attractive woman, especially if there's also a man there. It's about the male gaze and constantly trying to keep up with it, which proves difficult for you if there's someone there that you worry might be more attractive than you. The second reason is that women are more relationally aggressive. Of course, not always. It's not helpful to paint women as these like catty, shrew creatures, but men tend to be more physically aggressive, and men likely are not going to get into a physical bar fight just because they think another guy is more attractive than them. But women can use relational aggression as a more subtle tool to put down a threat. And number three, men tend to do downward social comparisons, whereas women tend to do upward social comparisons. Downward social comparison is when you're comparing yourself to people who are less attractive than you, and upward social comparison is when you're comparing with people who you perceive to be more attractive. So men, when they're doing self-comparisons, they might be looking at people who are not as attractive, whereas women may be primarily looking at women who are more attractive than them and feeling bad about themselves, and they often try to respond by trying to keep up with beauty standards or excluding the women by whom they feel threatened. The good news is that self-esteem seems to moderate the relationship between a person's perception of you as attractive and their likelihood to view you or treat you more negatively because of it. In other words, people who are secure or have high self-esteem are less likely to put you down for being attractive. This definitely makes sense. I mean, if people feel good about themselves, why would they feel threatened by you as a person? They know that your light doesn't dim theirs. And what about in the context of dating? What is the relationship between gender and the halo effect there? A study where male and female participants judged prospective online dating profiles of attractive individuals who they knew were fake profiles exemplifies this relationship. Men and women in the study were equally influenced by an attractive profile owner. But for men, in contrast to women, perceived physical attractiveness automatically overrode all other information available. So they knew that this was a catfish, and this person's attractiveness overrode that information. The implication here is that men may be more susceptible to the halo effect when it concerns romantic or sexual partners than women are. So you might be thinking, aha, attractive women get it easier in dating. Also wrong. A study from 2016 showed that actually men perceive more attractive women on dating profiles to be less trustworthy. In other words, yes, attractiveness helps both men and women's chances of getting dating matches, but attractiveness actually puts women in a worse off position once they actually do have those matches. They are desired as objects of physical attraction, but they're not respected or admired or loved more for it. It's about the fact that women who are perceived as more attractive are more frequently objectified and sexualized in our society, which is absolutely a point of contention in this whole debate about pretty privilege. It kind of goes hand in hand with why some studies find that there's the opposite of a halo effect for attractive women. If you see a woman as just a bimbo or just a pretty object, you're not going to pay any attention to the positive qualities that she has. You're just going to dismiss her. I've definitely experienced this online quite a bit. Like sometimes red pillars will just look at my page and assume that I'm an idiot because of how I look. If you can't accuse someone of being ugly because they're very obviously attractive by society's standards, then you're going to attack them for things that aren't as quickly or visually disproven, such as saying women aren't funny, she's not even that smart, you're too emotional, things that someone can't immediately say, yo, that's out of line, like that's really not true. And this might look to the untrained eye like it's attractive women getting less hate or criticism for their looks, but the truth is that they're still getting judged and dehumanized for being attractive, only it manifests in other ways. They might not get told they're ugly, but they get told a whole host of other insults and slurs, and a good chunk of people will judge them more harshly for being attractive. It's why the arguments of incels and red pillars about women's pretty privilege or female privilege don't stand up against any arguments. They argue that women have pretty privilege because they sometimes get into clubs for free, get doors held open for them, get the occasional date paid for. Let's be very clear that these privileges are the direct result of women's objectification. When women get into clubs for free, it's not because bouncers love and honor them. It's because they're trying to lure in men, and many men's idea of a good time means being outnumbered by women so that they get to determine the sexual politics of the culture, and so that they can select from an array of different women that they can view as objects. When a man holds a door open for a woman because she's pretty and he wouldn't do that for an unattractive woman, he's operating under the assumption that a woman's worth and respectability hinges on her physical attractiveness. When a man pays for a date, sometimes it might be because he's generous and wants to let the woman know he's serious about her, but all too often it's because he feels he can buy her and that the nature of their relationship is transactional. By spending money, he feels entitled to her body as if her body is an object to commodify. So yeah, even the privileges associated with being pretty often stem from misogynistic and chauvinistic assumptions that a woman's greatest accomplishment is her beauty because she is merely a physical object to be consumed. Living in a world that objectifies women also means that most women self-objectify, which is basically when you see yourself kind of from the outside looking in as opposed to experiencing your life from within your body, just constantly fixating, wondering how other people see you. And self-objectification is very much correlated with body image distress. When a woman self-objectifies, she becomes her 24/7 beauty patrol, splitting up her body into parts in need of fixing. And oftentimes, these women are also very attractive. Why is that? Because many women who try very hard to keep up with beauty standards actually do increase their attractiveness, but studies show that those who are proud of their beauty become even more helpless and ashamed when they're no longer able to attain it. Also, because women who are naturally beautiful are constantly told that they're beautiful, and they start to feel that's why people will like them, and they start to feel very sensitive to signs that they might be losing their beauty, because that would mean people don't like them anymore. Which is why we so often see beautiful women talking about how insecure they are, or talking about how they have body dysmorphia and so forth. We have to keep in mind that it is not attractiveness itself that makes people feel good about themselves. It's their perception of attractiveness or their perception of their own body. Someone could be very objectively ugly but feel great about themselves, just like someone could be objectively gorgeous but feel disgusting. And the latter, like I mentioned, is very common. In other words, beauty might provide a temporary happiness or satisfaction, but just like beauty itself, that happiness is fleeting and can just as freely be taken as it was given. So what does this mean? How can we make sense of all these studies? Yes, there is a halo effect, but recent research has revealed that it's actually mostly just for men. Women get judged for their appearances no matter what. Women who don't fit beauty standards get shamed and judged all the time. And women who are considered attractive are viewed more negatively by both women and sometimes men, especially by other insecure women, and they're more often objectified by men and by themselves. So a lot of the discussion around pretty privilege that I see online is by women specifically, but this seems somewhat unsupported by the literature, which shows that women in particular are negatively affected by their looks, no matter their attractiveness level. If you are an attractive woman, it may actually benefit you to downplay this in professional settings such as job interviews or when trying to garner someone's sympathy, like when you're apologizing, especially if you know there will be other potentially insecure women there. And although being attractive will get you more dates, it may be more beneficial to actually downplay your attractiveness once you actually do go on the date, if you're trying to garner someone's respect. But then again, if you're going on a date with someone that's going to judge you as a bimbo for being attractive, that's not really someone you want to be with anyway. If you're being bullied or more harshly judged due to your attractiveness, remember that this is likely due to the other person's insecurity and not a reflection of you. There are people out there who, regardless of their attractiveness level, will not feel threatened by you or try to one-up you or try to put you down. Pay attention to who those people are and gravitate towards them instead. If you are an unattractive person of any gender, remember that this does not necessarily correlate with happiness. Context and the meaning that you make of appearances are much more important factors in determining your long-term well-being. And keep in mind that there could actually even be some advantages to not fitting into beauty standards. And if you're a man, then yeah, it'll benefit you to flaunt it if you got it. You go Glen Coco, do your thing, wear that suit and tie, either shave your face or trim your beard or gel your hair, whatever men do. If you're gonna be more attractive, that's probably gonna benefit you long term. So I hope this was interesting to you. References in the description box as usual. Let me know what you think about this topic in the comment section, and I'll see you soon.